What if your containers looked better this summer than they ever have, and you did less work than you did last year? Not a little less, significantly less. No deadheading every 3 days. No weekly fertilizing. No dragging out the hose every morning just to keep things alive. And no replacing everything next spring because it didn't survive the winter. The 10 perennials in this video were chosen specifically for container gardening by gardeners who got tired of doing it the hard way. They come back every year. They handle heat. They handle drought. They handle the weeks when life gets busy and the watering schedule falls apart completely. And at the end of this video, I'm sharing the one pot hack that changes everything, the single setup change that cuts your watering time in half, protects roots through hard freezes, and is the reason the plants we cover today thrive in containers when the same plants in a neighbor's pot barely survive. Stay through all 10, because the hack only makes sense once you've seen the plants it works best with. Before plant 1, drop your US state in the comments right now. Your USDA hardiness zone determines which of these 10 will overwinter reliably in your specific containers. And we're calling out zones throughout this entire video. And if Garden Senior Living isn't already part of your week, hit subscribe before this video ends. Practical zone-specific container gardening guidance goes out every single week. The kind of information that saves you real money and real effort every season. Leave without subscribing, and the next video may never reach you. Let's get into the plants. Plant 1, Sedum stonocrop. Plant 1 breaks the rule most container gardeners follow without ever questioning it. The better your potting soil, the worse this plant performs. Read that again, because it is the single most important thing to understand about growing sedum in containers. Most gardeners reach for premium moisture control potting mix and then spend the entire summer watching their sedum grow tall, floppy, and completely unattractive. The rich, water-retentive soil is the problem. Sedum stores water inside its own leaf tissue, a built-in reservoir system that makes the plant almost entirely independent of your watering schedule. Established sedum has been documented going 6 to 8 weeks without a single drop of supplemental water and recovering without any lasting damage. Try that with any annual in a container and see what you come back to. Plant sedum in lean, slightly poor soil, and it stays compact, colorful, and well-shaped from spring through the first hard frost. Stop fertilizing it entirely. That act of deliberate neglect produces better form, richer color, and cleaner structure than any amendment you could add. The fall display this plant produces, deep copper pink clusters that deepen as temperatures drop, is frequently the best thing growing on any porch or deck in September and October. Autumn fire delivers those copper pink clusters from September through November and stands upright in containers without ever flopping. Dragon's blood stays low with vivid red foliage that intensifies dramatically as temperatures cool. Matrona is tall and architectural with burgundy stems and dusty pink blooms that look professionally chosen, zones 3 through 9. Water deeply once at planting, then once every 2 to 3 weeks through summer. When temperatures begin dropping in fall, stop watering entirely. The fall color display it produces after that will be the best thing growing on your porch, bar none. Plant 2. Lavender plant 2 is killed by the same bag of potting mix every single year across America. The one labeled Premium Moisture Control, that specific bag. Lavender developed on rocky Mediterranean hillsides where soil nutrition is minimal and moisture disappears almost immediately. The rich, water-retaining mixes most American gardeners automatically reach for are exactly what rot lavender roots. And the frustrating part is that nobody at the garden center will ever tell you that before you buy it. The fix takes 2 minutes. Mix your standard potting soil with 1/3 coarse perlite or horticultural grit before planting. Use containers with a minimum of 3 drainage holes. Remove saucers completely. Never place one underneath a lavender pot. That combination of changes makes lavender nearly impossible to kill in a container. Hidcoat is deep purple, compact, and the most cold-hardy English lavender available to American gardeners, surviving reliably to Zone 5. For gardeners in the South, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Phenomenal handles heat and humidity better than any other lavender on the market, performing dependably across zones 6 through 9. For fragrance above all else, Grosso carries the highest essential oil concentration of any variety and blooms continuously from June through August. Never fertilize lavender in a container. Not once. Rich nutrients produce soft, weak stems with almost no scent, and the essential oil concentration that creates the fragrance actually increases when the plant is slightly underfed. Position the container where you sit on warm evenings. Brush the foliage lightly as you walk past. The oils release instantly. A fragrant, mosquito-discouraging personal space from a single pot. No annual ever gives you that return. Zones 5 through 9, depending on variety. Plant 3. Hosta Plant 3 is more beautiful in a container than it is in the ground. Not equally beautiful, more beautiful. And the reason is specific enough that once you understand it, you may never plant a hosta directly in the ground again. Containers eliminate slugs, the single most destructive force in hosta ground plantings across America. They eliminate the drainage problems that cause root rot in poorly managed in-ground soil, and they give you complete portability. Move them to the best display location in summer. Move them to a protected spot before hard freeze in fall. You are not limiting hostas by growing them in pots. You are giving them conditions the ground simply cannot provide. Some in substance produces enormous chartreuse gold leaves, up to 18 inches across that glow in shade as though lit from within. Nothing else in a shady container arrangement creates that kind of visual presence at the same price. Halcyon has powder blue foliage that is naturally slug-resistant and stays clean and attractive all season without any intervention. Patriot has deep green leaves with crisp white margins that look hand-painted. In zones 3 through 5, move containers against a protected wall or into an unheated garage before hard freeze. In zones 8 and 9, morning sun only. Afternoon shade is non-negotiable for keeping foliage attractive through summer heat. A well-managed container hosta never needs replacing. It divides naturally every few years. Separate it into 2 or 3 sections. Put them into fresh containers with fresh soil, and your original purchase has now produced enough plants to fill 8 containers over a decade. That is the mathematics of perennial container gardening that annual gardeners never get to experience. Zones 3 through 9. Plant 4. Catmint, Nepeta, Walker's Low. Plant 4 makes the most commonly purchased container plant in America look like a bad investment. Petunias need deadheading every few days, weekly fertilizing, and complete replacement every single spring. Catmint needs 1 trim per season. 1 trim, and it blooms for 6 continuous months while petunias are struggling to look presentable through August. Walker's Low produces cascading clouds of lavender blue flowers on arching stems from May through October. 6 months of color from a single plant that comes back stronger every year without being replaced. Butterflies are strongly attracted. You'll have visible wildlife activity around your containers all summer without planting anything specifically for that purpose. The foliage releases a mild herbal fragrance when touched that most biting insects find deeply unpleasant. Color, wildlife, and natural pest deterrents from one plant that asks almost nothing in return. Walker's Low is the benchmark, award-winning, 18 to 24 inches tall, the most reliable catmint for American containers across almost every climate zone. Cat's Meow is more compact and self-cleaning, blooming without deadheading, ideal for smaller containers or gardeners who want even less involvement. Six Hills Giant is larger and more dramatic for anyone who wants a genuine statement plant anchoring a big pot on a front porch or back deck. When the first flush begins fading in July, cut the entire plant back by half. It looks severe for about 10 days. Then it returns with a second bloom flush that is frequently heavier than the first. 2 complete bloom cycles from one plant in a single season. Gardeners who skip that cut lose 6 to 8 weeks of color every summer and never understand why. Zones 3 through 8. Once weekly watering once established, even through peak summer heat. Plant 5. Coral Bells, Hochera. Plant 5 is one of the most commonly misplaced container perennials in American gardens, and the correction takes less than 5 minutes. Most gardeners put Heucherea in deep shade and spend the entire season wondering why the color looks washed out and dull. Deep shade is exactly the wrong placement. Moving it to catch 2 to 3 hours of gentle morning light produces more visible color intensity than any fertilizer or soil amendment you could add. 2 weeks after that repositioning, the difference in color saturation is obvious enough that you'll wonder why nobody mentioned it sooner. The color range available in modern Heucheras is remarkable: burgundy, silver, lime green, caramel, orange, near black. More variety than most flowering plants. And that color is present from the moment the plant breaks dormancy in spring all the way through hard frost in fall. In zones 7 through 9, it stays fully evergreen, container color and structure for all 12 months without a single additional task. Palace Purple produces deep burgundy leaves that appear almost black in certain light, one of the most dramatic foliage effects available in container gardening at any price. Lime Ricky is electric chartreuse that illuminates shady corners the way nothing else can. Caramel produces warm amber-orange tones that shift visibly throughout the season. A plant that looks genuinely different every month from April through October. Zones 4 through 9, 2 to 3 hours of morning light. That one adjustment is the entire difference between a heuchera that looks stunning and one that disappoints. 5 plants in. Are you already growing any of these in containers? Drop the name in the comments. And if you've overwintered a container perennial successfully, tell everyone watching which plant it was and in what zone you're in. That information helps every gardener reading below this video. Garden Senior Living covers this kind of specific, practical, zone-honest container gardening information every single week. If this video has already been useful, the subscribe button is the decision worth making before you close it. Plant 6, Russin Sage Prevescia, a triplixifolia plant 6, performs better in a container than it does in the ground. Not equally well, better. The contained root system encourages more compact, upright growth than open soil ever produces. Gardeners who grow it in-ground first and then try it in a container rarely go back. The bloom period is something most American gardeners have never experienced from a single perennial. Once Russian sage establishes roots, it blooms continuously from July through October. 4 full months of blue-purple flowers on silver-white stems. Most perennials give American gardeners 4 to 6 weeks of color under ideal conditions. Russian sage gives 4 complete months regardless of conditions. No pest pressure, deer avoid it entirely. The aromatic foliage repels insects naturally without any spray or treatment. And after blooming ends, the silver architectural stem structure provides genuine winter interest when every other container on your street looks bare and empty. The entire annual maintenance requirement is one task. Cut back to 6 inches in late February or early March. 30 seconds of work. In return, it comes back fuller and more floriferous than the season before. That exchange is almost unreasonably fair. In Zone 4, position the container against a protected south-facing wall before hard freeze arrives. In Zones 8 and 9, Russian sage may behave as semi-evergreen, keeping its silver structure through mild winters and providing year-round container interest without a single additional task. Zones 4 through 9, Plant 7. Daily Plant 7 has over 35,000 registered cultivars. Most American gardeners are growing one of 3 common orange varieties and believe they have seen what this plant is capable of. They haven't. The color range available in modern daylilies: burgundy, deep gold, pale cream, near black, soft lavender, blazing red, peach, and bicolors in combinations that shouldn't logically exist, is broad. Enough that daylilies alone could carry a container garden from June through October without a single color repeated. Each individual bloom opens for one day. That is literally where the name comes from. But a single established clump produces 40 to 60 buds across multiple stems over a 6-week window. Something is always opening. The container never goes completely quiet. In containers, daylilies perform exceptionally well because the restricted root environment encourages more concentrated bloom production. Tuberous root fans expand outward each season but are controlled by the container walls, keeping the plant tidy without the spreading that can become problematic in open ground beds. Divide the clump every 4 to 5 years when the center stops blooming well. Each division becomes a full blooming plant within 1 season, a single purchase from this spring, compounding into multiple containers over the next decade at 0 additional cost. Virtually pest and disease free across all U.S. regions. Morning sun with afternoon shade extends individual bloom life in Zone 7 and warmer. Zones 3 through 9, full sun to partial shade. Drought tolerant once fully established. Plant 8, Black-Eyed Susan, Rebecca Plant 8, produces 80 to 120 simultaneous blooms at peak flowering, not over the course of a season. At one time, standing in front of a container with that many golden yellow flowers open at once against those deep dark centers is a color impact that almost nothing else at the same price can replicate. And this plant performs better in its second year than its first. Better in its third than its second. Every winter, the root system strengthens and pushes out more flowering stems than the year before. A plant purchased this spring will be more impressive next summer, and more impressive still the summer after that. Goldsturm is the benchmark. Award-winning, compact enough for containers, blooming without interruption from July through September. Prairie Sun has yellow petals with green centers rather than dark, a fresher, more contemporary look that stands out immediately. Cherry Brandy produces unusual copper-orange tones that set it completely apart from every other yellow-flowering perennial on your deck or porch. Leave the seed heads standing through fall and winter. Goldfinches, chickadees, and house finches feed on them actively from October through February. Your container becomes a wildlife feeding station that costs nothing to operate after the plant is established. Here is the piece of information most American gardeners are missing. Black-eyed Susan is a fully hardy perennial. It was never meant to be replaced. Most people buy it as an annual and start over every single spring, spending money they didn't need to spend year after year. That cycle ends now. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun. Tolerates dry, poor soil better than most perennials on this list. Plant 9. Coneflower Echinacea Plant 9 does more for a container garden than any other single plant on this list. Native to American soil. Documented by the National Wildlife Federation as one of the top 5 bird-feeding native plants in the country. Blooms from June through September. Self-seeds into surrounding containers, providing free plants every season. Seed heads left standing through fall and winter feed goldfinches, chickadees, and house finches from October through February. A container that earns its space in every single month of the calendar year without being asked. Magnus Purple is the classic. Larger flower heads than the wild species, more upright habit, universally reliable from Maine to Texas. White Swan is pure white with orange centers and slightly more shade tolerant than purple varieties. Clean and elegant for gardeners who want something beyond the standard color. Hot Paprika produces double orange-red flowers that are the most dramatic modern coneflower variety available to American container gardeners right now. A coneflower purchased this spring will self-seed, feed wildlife through winter, return stronger next year, and never once ask to be replaced. For any container gardener with a vegetable planter within 10 feet, the pollinator activity a mature coneflower draws directly improves the productivity of tomatoes, peppers, and any other flowering food crop nearby. 5 independent reasons to grow it in one plant that largely takes care of itself. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun to light shade. Leave seed heads through winter. Long-lived. An established container planting can persist for 20 years with proper seasonal care. Plant 10. Ornamental grass. Karl Foerster Plant 10 looks intentional in January. Every other container on your street in the middle of winter looks abandoned, empty, and forgotten. Karl Foerster Feather Reed Grass looks like someone planned it that way. The clean, upright architectural stem structure stands through frost, through snow, through everything winter sends across American yards from Zone 4 through Zone 9. That alone sets this plant apart from everything else on this list. Spring brings fresh green vertical structure back to the container. Summer develops the characteristic wheat-colored feathery plumes that move in the lightest breeze and produce a soft, gentle sound that no other container plant generates. Fall transitions the entire plant to warm gold, while seed heads begin feeding birds through the cooling months. Winter provides the standing architectural presence that makes a porch or deck look considered rather than neglected. 4 complete seasons of genuine container interest from one plant that requires one maintenance task per year. Karl Foerster stands narrow and upright at 4 to 5 feet, the most architectural container grass available to American gardeners, and a past Perennial Plant of the Year award winner. Morning Light has fine silver-edged leaves with a graceful arching form and soft pink fall plumes. More delicate and elegant, better for gardeners who want movement and softness rather than strict, vertical structure. Blue fescue forms compact blue-gray mounds at 10 to 12 inches, perfect for smaller containers and mixed arrangements where a low accent is needed without dominant height. Cut ornamental grasses back to 4 to 6 inches in late February. That is the complete annual maintenance requirement. One task, 5 minutes, and then watch it return taller, fuller, and more impressive than the season before. Karl Foerster Zones 4 through 9. Morning Light Zones 5 through 9. Blue Fescue Zones 4 through 8. The Pot Hack Now. The pot hack that makes every single one of these 10 plants perform at a higher level in containers than they would without it. It is not a product. It is not a gadget. It is a setup approach that costs almost nothing, takes 15 minutes to implement, and solves the 3 problems that kill more container perennials in America than drought, cold, and neglect combined. The hack has 4 parts. Part 1. Drainage. The #1 killer of container perennials is not underwatering. It is overwatering combined with inadequate drainage. Roots in waterlogged soil cannot access oxygen. They suffocate and rot from the bottom up. And by the time the damage shows in the foliage, the root system is already beyond saving. Every container needs a minimum of 3 drainage holes. Before adding any soil, place a 2-inch layer of coarse gravel or broken pottery shards at the base. Water should drain visibly within 15 to 20 seconds of application. If it pools longer than 30 seconds, the mix is too dense. Remove saucers from drought-tolerant plants on this list. Sedum, lavender, Russian sage, catmint entirely. Standing water beneath the pot defeats the drainage you just created. Part 2. The right soil mix. Standard garden soil is too heavy. Cheap potting mix holds too much moisture against the roots. The correct recipe for every perennial on this list: 50% quality potting mix, 30% coarse perlite, 20% compost. That combination drains well, holds enough moisture between waterings, and feeds the plant slowly through the season without synthetic fertilizer. Each spring, remove the top 2 inches of soil from every container and replace it with fresh compost mixed with a small amount of slow-release granular fertilizer. 10 minutes per container, once per year. That is the complete annual soil maintenance for every plant covered in this video. Part 3. Container size. A perennial in a 10-inch container needs water every 1 to 2 days in summer. The same plant in a 16-inch container needs water every 3 to 4 days. The same plant in a 24-inch container needs water once to twice weekly. The minimum size for every plant on this list is 16 inches in diameter. Anything smaller defeats the entire purpose of low-maintenance container gardening before the season even starts. In winter, small containers freeze solid. A perennial in a 10-inch pot in Zone 5 has almost no insulation between its roots and a hard freeze. The same plant in a 24-inch container has the thermal S-mass to protect roots through temperatures that would destroy them in a smaller pot. Container size is not just a summer decision. It determines whether the plant comes back in spring or needs replacing. And for gardeners in zones 4 through 6, that distinction is the entire difference between a perennial container garden and an annual one. Part 4. Winter positioning. Most gardeners leave containers exactly where they spent summer. A container sitting on exposed concrete or open wood decking loses heat through the bottom just as fast as through the sides. Before the first hard freeze, move containers onto insulating surfaces, thick rubber mats, wooden pallets, or a layer of dry straw spread beneath the pot. In zones 4 and 5, cluster containers together against a south-facing wall. A group of 5 16-inch pots maintains root temperature significantly better through a hard freeze than 5 individual pots scattered across an open porch. Grouped containers share thermal mass. That one repositioning takes 15 minutes and can be the difference between 10 thriving perennials next spring and 10 replacement purchases next April. That is the hack. 4 parts. All free or nearly free. Completely transformative for every plant on this list. 10 perennials. 1 pot hack. Here is every plant in one place. Sedum. Lean soil. Near zero water once established. Spectacular fall color zones 3 to 9. Lavender. Fragrant. Mosquito-discouraging. Perlite amended soil essential. Zones 5-9. Hosta. Best shade container perennial available. Slug-free in pots. Divides into free plants. Zones 3-9. Catmint walkers low. 6 months of bloom. 1 trim per season. Deer and pest resistant. Zones 3-8. Coral bells. Year-round foliage color. Morning light essential. Evergreen in zones 7-9. Russian sage. 4-month bloom window. 1 annual cut. Architectural winter interest. Zones 4-9. Daily. 35,000 cultivars. Continuous blooms. Drought tolerant once established. Zones 3-9. Black-eyed Susan. 80 to 120 simultaneous blooms at peak. Feeds birds through winter. Zones 3 to 9. Coneflower. Native, self-seeds into neighboring pots. Wildlife magnet all year. Zones 3 to 9. Karl Foerster grass. 4-season architectural interest. 1 cut per year. Zones 4-9. The difference between a container garden that exhausts you and one that rewards you is not how much time you spend. It is which plants you choose and how the containers are set up to support them. Every plant on this list was chosen because it does the work. It comes back. It handles neglect. It gets better with time rather than demanding replacement. And every part of the pot hack was chosen because it eliminates the setup problems that make even the right plants fail in the wrong containers. Put these two things together, the right plants in the right setup, and a container garden becomes one of the most genuinely rewarding things you can do with an outdoor space. Which of these 10 are you most excited to try in containers this season? Drop the number in the comments. And if you're already growing any of these in pots and have overwintered them successfully, tell everyone watching which plant, which zone, and how you protected the roots through winter. That answer in the comments today helps every gardener reading after you make a better decision before the season goes any further. If this video gave you something useful, one plant, one pot hack detail, one thing you didn't know before, the like button is how you help other gardeners find this information. One tap puts this in front of someone who needs it. Garden Senior Living publishes a new video every single week. Next week covers the 8 best annual companions that make every one of these 10 container perennials bloom longer, look fuller, and attract more wildlife through the season. Miss that video and you leave real results on the table. Subscribe so it finds you automatically. Now go set up those containers properly. The plants will do the rest. Garden Senior Living, practical container gardening guidance every week.